Ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday. This is Pushing Boundaries, pushboundconsulting.com. We are your one-day shop, one-stop shop for everything PD. If you are an administrator or a teacher, educator, or know someone who's in need of some life-changing PD, please contact us. Let us know what you need. We have a team of people around the world who can pretty much help you with whatever you need to impact your staff, impact everyone, and have an effective PD at your school. My name is Silas Knowles, aka Robert Knowles, aka whatever you want to call me. Teachers of virtual learning, you're awesome. You guys are doing a great job. I am tired beyond tired can be. I've never been this tired before. I've been doing a virtual Latinx conference this week. So it's been an interesting week. Been very inspirational for me, but the first quarter is ending, grades are going in, and students are like, I forgot all my work. So teachers of virtual learning, you guys are great. You guys are awesome. Please keep up the great work. I know you're tired. I'm tired too. Keep pushing on. We're pushing boundaries, pushing our classrooms if they're virtual or kind of some stuff. And so today, we have a nice little guest today. We have Todd Brown from Project Inspired. Project, how are you doing today, sir?
Not too bad. I'm probably tired like you, so we're all in the same boat.
Well, I hope prayers a little bit more prayers to you and everyone out there. Dr. Brown is in Florida right now experiencing some of the most ridiculous storms I've ever seen in my life. And everyone's by you, but I really want, and do you, because I really want to see how they name these storms and how they come up with these names, because we've had like Irvin, Henry, Tom, all these different names. I just want to ask as if you're really strong or really timid, or I don't know. What do you think?
Say that again. You're breaking up. Sorry about that.
Okay, with hurricanes and stuff, how do they name them? I mean, do you know
Dude, I have
these
no
names?
Idea. No,
these
I have no idea.
I'd like to be in one of these meetings to be like classified hurricanes, Hurricane Irma, or whatever the case may be. It's I don't know anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just somebody in a random room in the back of a warehouse. Like, this would be an awesome name or what, but they fire up some interesting names. I agree. I totally agree.
I mean, definitely. It gets to the point where it's just like, wow. Now before we get started, I just want to mention everyone, definitely this is interactive. So when we're on Facebook, encourage anyone who's watching, ask questions through the comments, post comments, ask questions from either one of us, make sure everything. I don't think is off limits nowadays. It's the way we are, but we're that Dr. Todd Brown is a proud and co-founder. I mean, when I go find your accolade, I think we're not in a room. I mean, there's a speed that it got to a point where it was just wow, it was so many things. So Inspired Project.
You broke up again.
What Inspired Project?
Yeah, so basically what this is, at least in Florida, I can say from where I'm at right now, is we were supposed to teach things about, jobs, occupations, and what you would like to be when you grow up and things of that nature. We're supposed to integrate it into the curriculum. And I tend to be really hyper. And I thought, gosh, reading about being a lawyer or reading about doing whatever, it's kind of boring. So I said, why don't we start talking to different people from all over the world, and not just your traditional walks of life or occupations, just anybody and everybody. And let's not only bring this into the schools, but let's turn this into, I call it a TED for kids, but backwards. So instead of sitting there and having people just talk to you for an hour, it's really a Q&A situation where the kids are really involved in asking questions that they're interested in. And it can be as broad as, how do you deal with success? Or what happened the first time you were following your dream and somebody said, you know what, dude, you have no chance of making it. Like, what do you do to overcome things like that? And sometimes it's nice to put aside all the pressures of curriculum and state standards and things like that and testing, and just be a human being and just talk to people. And I think there's a lot of value in things like that now. So I think we're at around 70 speakers in 26 countries over the last 5 years. So it's been a really fun ride so far.
Wow. Now, when we talk and waves of what speakers do you have on the project?
Yeah, I mean, so I look to anybody and everybody that possibly can. I mean, we've had people that are local that have done really well for themselves, and we go all the way up to people like Garth Brooks, Jada Pinkett Smith. We have a lot of different people that we have. Garth will actually be talking to us again this December. And, it's funny because all of these people tie into school, and that's something that a lot of times teachers, because we get so focused in on our state standards, they go, well, it's cool to talk to Garth Brooks, but why would I want to talk to him and take time out of my day or time away from teaching to do this? We joke around about it. I mean, you start thinking about money, or you start thinking about attendance, tickets sold, and how that would tie into math, or even writing music and things of that. We can always tie it back into the curriculum. And even if you don't want to get into crazy with the standards, like I said, there's something to be said for when someone like a Garth says, I went to Nashville, I was going to be a country music star, and I was told you're not good enough. So now what? And the other thing too is we've learned through talking to Jada Pinkett Smith and all these different people as well that, a lot of times with kids, when you read about someone that's so accomplished and so amazing, it deters you from wanting to be that kind of person, because you think, what? They're so perfect and incredible. I'll never be like that. And it's really a cool experience to talk to some of these people and realize they're just people, and they're goofy, and they've made mistakes, and they've not done well on things. And that bringing humanity into the classroom is so important, especially now when we're talking about what's going on with COVID and how detached we are from people. It's really important.
Definitely. Talk about that's awesome. I mean, people like Jada Smith and Garth Brooks and people that curriculum. How does that affect you now during COVID? How does that do school virtual, and how did you change with the times?
Yeah, we did a lot of it virtual to start with, just by virtue of all the different people and time zones and countries and things like that. But I tell you what it's done with COVID. It really pulls us back from our individual problems and lives to see that we're all in the same boat, and we're all having to deal with changes in our daily patterns. And we're seeing how people, for instance, we spoke with Abdi Nur Iftin today. If anybody doesn't know who he is, he was a finalist for the American Book of the Year, best-selling author. He was the last Somali refugee to be allowed to come into the United States, and he's since written a couple. Amazing guy. It took him 10 years to get from Somalia to the United States. So just for him to talk about how is he dealing in his daily life with what we're all dealing with, and how does he view it differently, being that things like he hasn't seen his father in 21 years or his mother and sister in 10 years, and he was having to dig a hole and sleep in it with a rug over himself so the militants didn't come in and shoot him. So what are his struggles in his life? How does it apply to our lives now, and how does that affect how he views things? So it really brings in this different perspective, but shows that we're all human and we all need to bond together to do what we need to do to fight this.
Definitely. I mean, with about that, they go through what you just described. It makes COVID look very tiny to something somebody has to do every day to be able to survive. And that's inspiring to hear with others to show like on life and experiences.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because we tend to be very fortunate in our lives, just in general, especially in America. And we joke around. You talk to Abdi, or you talk to some other people. that have lived through war, like real war. And then it's interesting because, we get pissed off when our batteries are low on our cell phones, right? You're like, oh man, now what do I do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like this app doesn't work the way it's supposed to, or I got killed on level, whatever. Fortnite pisses me off. But then you really understand what struggle is, and you really start to think maybe I should look at life a little different than what I tend to and silo myself in. And that's important, I think.
Don't you remember 2025 years, no internet?
Oh, dude. Yeah, reading.
For ourselves and everything else, and like, I need to read a map. I have Google Maps, and it's, well, what do you don't have? No, maybe you want that you need to read a map, or you need to. It's just, I try to in classrooms. I teach in high school setting for 25 years ago, we internet. Now it's just.
Yeah, it's funny because I talk to my kids all the time about it, whether I was teaching or just my own children. It's interesting because, like, I know you probably can relate. Like, I used to have to go see if my friends were home, like walk or run or ride my bike and knock on the door instead of just like pull up, whatever. It's so weird that how everything. It's great that it's so accessible, right? But
like, you can't go down the street and the door and have people interaction.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, it's great, but it is weird how, human connectivity has been increased because of technology. But on the flip side, the actual human side of it has actually been separated. And I can talk to anybody, like we're talking across the country right now. But, in day-to-day lives, we start to kind of shrink into our own world and be able to play around on the phone or whatever. And not that the phones aren't great, but you start to lose basic conversation skills and understanding emotion and facial recognition and what people mean with body language. And that's a scary thing sometimes.
Definitely. Transition. When I was doing my homework, like I do before shows, I was looking at your website, I was looking at Twitter and else, and I came something across called the Operation Outbreak. I was wondering, can you dive in a little bit of what Operation Outbreak means to you guys and how that came about?
Yeah, so it's crazy. So I was teaching civics just in middle school, and it was during the 2014-15 Ebola outbreak, and we had a lot of kids coming into to my classroom, kind of nervous and confused and curious as to what the heck is going on. And then we start seeing this case that pops up in the United States, somebody's brought back over, and it was just panic. So they were so engaged, and I know teachers out there probably have seen this before, they were so engaged with what was happening in the real world, they were starting to lose interest with what was going on in my classroom and what I was teaching. So I thought, you know what, let's modify this government unit that I'm teaching right now, and let's look at it through the lens of a pandemic or an outbreak. So how do government agencies work together within a country? What is a non-government government organization versus a government? How do governments work together around the world if something like this were to happen? And then from there, as we were getting into it and kids were learning and really, really heavily engaged with it, I started thinking about, you know what? It's one thing to know something, but it's another thing to actually use what you know in the real world. So I thought, I got together with some science teachers and said, hey, let's do this. Let's simulate an outbreak on our campus, and we'll have a government, we'll have a military, media, general populace, we'll have our triage epidemic. Let's really run this like we're a little mini country and see what happens. And it was it was awesome. It was amazing to watch the paranoia and how many people and the students really got into this role-playing activity. And then from there, my wife bought a Time magazine for my daughter, who at the time was 6, she loved science. Mm-hmm. So I was reading this Time magazine, and Dr. Pardis Sabeti popped up in the magazine as one of the best contemporary scientists in the world. So I said, hey, you know what? You want me to send off and try to find her and get an autograph for you? My daughter was like, yeah, that would be cool. So I reached out. We struck up this conversation, and before you know it, she is an infectious disease specialist over the Broad Institute, a computational geneticist. and she was in the middle of dealing with the Ebola outbreak. So we struck up this conversation. Before you know it, she's like, you know what, I want to help out and be involved with this outbreak that you're doing. And then fast forward a couple of years, we went from using this goofy sticker system that we were trying to use to spread disease, and we all co-invented the first app of its kind that can spread a pathogen via Bluetooth over electronic devices.
Wow.
So then we can actually we can produce a real quote unquote airborne virus over electronic devices. So that's where we're at this point. And then we've elevated things quite a bit with our capability. It's de-identified, but we can now we can seed infections. So now we can watch who gets infected. We can watch transmission events, how things transpire, and we can timestamp decisions now, right? So we can look at this decision led to this reaction in the population, and also the proliferation or the quelling of the spread of a pathogen. So we've created this simulation now, and it's really taken off, as you can imagine, because of the COVID world. And it's important, it's important for people to know.
I'm sure when you guys created it in 2019, you had no idea what was around the corner. And, it's just one of those things where you're just like, that light bulb went off like midstream.
Yeah. So we've been doing it for about 6 years, but 2019 this is like the conspiracy theory of all conspiracy theories. It kind of makes us laugh, not laugh, but so here's the thing. So in September of 2019, I was in China teaching the simulation and working through teaching them kind of how everything works. And then in December, when I came back, we ran a simulation at Sarasota Military Academy Prep, our middle school in Sarasota. And the pathogen, because we can program the app to simulate any pathogen. So how infectious, what the mortality rate, all of this. So we decided, and Dr. Andres Colubri, who's like the evil genius, he said, you know what, let's run a mutation of SARS with a reproductive number of around 2 to 3. And 50% of the cases are asymptomatic. So it makes it very difficult to track. So we ran this. So interestingly enough, even crazier, the previous March, we wrote a piece for Wired talking about how you need to start teaching these things in school because there's going to be a pandemic. It's a 100-year cycle. Why wait for it, kind of thing. So that article came out 1 year prior to the day that President Trump issued his national emergency for COVID. And in December, we ran a SARS mutation with 50% asymptomatic spread after I was over in China. So it was like this big conspiracy theory that you predicted a pandemic and you even picked almost the same type. And it has nothing to do with that. It's just we were paying attention to what happens in the daily, in the world. But it made it more interesting and prevalent, to say the least.
Well, I mean, you look at anything historical. I mean, the Spanish flu, everything else. They have this. They've put it on TV already. They have this 100-year. It's like every 100 years something happens. Every 100 years. So even going by historical findings, you have stuff to back it up. Like, hey, wait, we didn't predict anything. We just went with the trend, and
Yeah. And what's interesting that you're bringing it up too is, disease, and I get yelled at by the environmental scientists that I'm friends with all the time. Disease is different than any other existential threat in the world. And I say that when you think existential threats, say like nuclear weapons or proliferation. Me as an individual, I don't know how much I can affect the proliferation or the stopping of nuclear weapons, right? From a climate change, and it's not that you don't recycle or respect climate change, because I absolutely 1,000% believe and understand, but I am one of 7.5 billion people that are recycling. So, but from a disease standpoint, I can become a super spreader, and we see this in South Korea. Patient 31, this person had almost 1,700 contacts after being infectious, and it led to thousands of infections. The conference in Boston in February, one person came in from Italy, infected 100 people, and now that, because it's been genomically sequenced, that strain of COVID is responsible for 2% of the infections in the entire planet. So as an individual, I have a huge amount of power when it comes to infectious disease, whether I am a super spreader or I do what I'm supposed to, and I am not that super spreader. So that's why it's important for people to understand that, from a public health perspective.
And so, and it makes it more relevant what you guys do every day, tying experiences to big people and just back to life, every curriculum stuff that kids use every day and kids gravitate to and relate to. Should they every day?
Yeah, totally. Nothing, teaching and learning is not is most potent, if you want to call it that, when it affects someone in their daily lives. And right now, we're seeing that everyone is affected, whether they believe in it or don't. All the political stuff off to the side. The fact of the matter is, we're living it. It affects you, whatever you want to say, whether it affects your family, your community, and that's something really important. The other thing too is public health incorporates everything: math, science, history, sociology, even language arts and different languages, language barriers, how to communicate science to people in a certain way that's meaningful and understandable. So it's a huge lens, a huge umbrella that you can teach underneath and not change the standards or change anything that you're doing. You just look at it from a little different angle that is really relevant in today's world.
Definitely. Now, project and definitely what you guys are doing, the boundaries of what we have, disrupting the status quo of education. Your project, your baby, to put it mildly, where do you see that to further the status quo of education, to push the boundaries of more classrooms and more virtual classrooms, and just get out there and really make waves? How do you think that would transcend?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we have to, I don't want to rock the boat here, but I'm going to.
Please do. This is the place to do it.
States, state-driven testing, the byproduct or indirect byproduct is competition, right? Mm-hmm. Because now I'm competing against my own staff mates, maybe, or a different department or a different school, because depending on how well I score or my kids score, that will affect my paycheck or what kind of finances my school gets. So the indirect byproduct is we start to kind of silo ourselves and say, you know what, if I'm doing something really cool and it's engaging kids in a certain way and it helps elevate scores, maybe I don't want to share that with everyone else, which is the opposite, the polar opposite of what education is supposed to be. It's a field of shared knowledge. So we tend to not be as adventurous and look at other people as allies. We start to look at other people as competitors. And what we're trying to do, and what I've been trying to do with Inspire, is listen, let's open the doors. Let's make things open source, bring people together, start throwing out different ideas and make it more applicable to the world. So a kid doesn't have to sit there and go, I don't know why I'm learning this. Well, I can show you why you're learning this, and you can see it right now. Or in civics, we used to laugh about it. We'd start doing math, right? Census, electoral college, whatever. And kids would be like, whoa, wait, hold on. I didn't know this was math class. You're like, well, actually, what's funny is you actually have to use numbers in life. So, it's all connected.
Hold on, real quick. For some reason, my video just started on I was looking at Operation Outbreak on the YouTube. It kicked in. I'm just like, whoa. Sorry. Please continue. Yeah,
no. It just, we need to make sure that we understand that we're all in the same boat, right? And that just because it's funny, sometimes teachers, and I'm in this boat, I've been in this boat, sometimes teachers will demand things of their students and then turn around and not demand it of themselves. So, Amen. For instance, you need to be critical thinkers. You need to open your mind and start thinking out of the box. But then when an opportunity comes that's a little out of the box, say, let's go speak to this person, in Syria that's dealing with but that doesn't really have anything to do with the math homework last night, so I don't want to do that. And again, you wouldn't have a kid go, well, I had language arts homework last night, so I didn't have anything to do with math, so I didn't do my math. You'd be like, wait, hold on a second. So we want to make sure we have to open up a little bit and take a deep breath. And, we're always cramped, right? You have 9,000 standards to cover in this short a time period. And then however many weeks of testing and everything's all messed up. So, you got to start thinking about, okay, how can I engage kids in a different way while incorporating the standards and pulling different people in from all over the world? I taught, again, in history and civics. We did a unit, I made up a unit really of evil. How do normal, good people do terrible things? And they know it's wrong, they just do terrible things. So we looked at the Salem witch trials, we looked at the rise of the Nazis, we looked at the Rwandan genocide, modern day terrorism. And then I actually was fortunate enough to get Dr. Philip Zimbardo through Inspire to talk to the class. If you don't know who he is, he's the one that did the Stanford prison experiment. He's the one that created this and discovered what's called the Lucifer effect. But we tied all these different events and all these different geographical areas over a long period of time, so the kids could see big picture. And then the kids could start seeing things like, and kids are really smart. Somebody would do something around school, and then if somebody didn't report it, we would have kids go, that's bystander evil. That's what you're doing. It's wrong, and you could stand up and do the right thing, but you're choosing not to. That falls into this unit, and this is what, so they're starting to connect the dots. So you got to shake it up a little bit. I mean, you really have to.
Definitely. I mean, now more than ever, we all have the opportunity to shake that up. So, I completely respect and applaud what you do, and definitely the Inspire Project. But keep in mind of your time and everything else. I always like to keep this to about 30 minutes.
Sure.
It's always, because one time I wasn't mindful and I almost went an hour and a half. So it was one time we just kept talking and talking. I'm just like, man, that's just ridiculous. What if an administrator or an educator or someone wants to get a hold of the Inspire Project to use you guys, where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, you go to the inspireproject.us, and we're right there. You can email me through Sarasota Military Academy website, or even through operationoutbreak.org. All these different places. And what we're doing is everything is free. There's not a school that has to pay a penny to do anything for this. And we have speakers, we have projects that we're always involved in and always getting things rolling for anybody, anywhere. And again, because we're in the COVID world, and as you were talking about, we're virtual. So even people that aren't in school on campus that are in the virtual world, you still can participate.
So I'll be calling you.
Sure. Yeah, totally. I'm all over it.
And then when you get Garth, okay, I need that to me very quickly, because I love Garth. I'll geek boy out, fanboy out. That's fine. I'm all right with it. I'm very confident in myself that I can do that.
you won't be the only one, but I'm telling you now, December 3rd, he's talking. The time we're working through. But yeah, email me. I'll send you an invite, and we're good, man.
All my teachers that are watching can. This is just for me. Definitely. So definitely today, Dr. Todd Brown, I do appreciate your time. Inspire, check him out. Media that anyone can follow you at?
Yeah, it's on Twitter. Not that I do very well with social media, but it's at Inspire and then PROJ and the number 3. So Inspire Proj 3. I don't know why I did that. So, but that's where it is.
It looks like I don't know. I mean, sometimes when I did my original one, I mean, everyone steals the original idea, and then you have a new one. So you have to come up with some unique ways. Like I had Knowles, and I had a couple other. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Twitter is just so finicky nowadays.
Yeah, so, and I'm old, so I sign my name when I text to make sure people know it's me. You know what I mean? Like whatever works, man.
The one thing I just hate it with a passion, and I just got to say it out loud. In history teachers, make kids write papers. When kids write papers in the virtual world, write paper and text. just want to throw my computer against the wall. And when they like, you're saying you, the letter U, and
Yeah,
you know,
oh yeah.
everything. Oh God, that's one of those things. Anyway, that's my rant for the.
Perfect.
We appreciate it. We do appreciate having you on. For everyone else, this is Pushing Boundaries. This is the PB podcast. What are you guys doing to push the boundaries of your classroom? Here for our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you.